I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, everybody. And if we could have roll call, please.
Mayor Smith,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Valentine,
Here.
Trustee Stelter. He was here. Oh, there he is. Okay. Trustee Schwartz here. Trustee Check.
Here.
Trustee Hunter here. And Trustee Heck. Here. You have a quorum.
Thank you. So first order of business is approval of the agenda. Move to approve the agenda. And would somebody like to second?
Just one comment, no appreciations this week, but once I'm off more mobile, I will be out giving my appreciations.
Sounds good. Thank you. Do we have a second? Yes. Thank you. All in favor? Hey, thank you, everyone. And I actually have an announcement, but I want to open it up to any other trustee, if anybody else does. Hearing none, I just wanted to let the public know and everyone here, Stefan and I went to an all Delta County meeting on Thursday where different municipalities were giving their updates. And LaDonna, I forget her last name, who is the head of the Delta County Libraries, wanted people to know that they have gotten a grant and they have what's called a telehealth kit. And it's literally a suitcase. And Paonia has 2 of these and people can check them out. In that suitcase, there is a Chromebook that must be pretty easy to use with a lot of diagnostics, blood pressure, heart rate, oxygen level that people can do for themselves, and it can be uploaded through this Chromebook, and then they can be, I don't understand quite how it works, but they can be conversing with their physician and sending that basic information to people, to their provider. And you can check them out for 2 months at a time or 3 months at a time. And it was very cool, you know, it was a rolling suitcase about this big with all this electronics in there and including a scale. They had to be able to take weight. And she was laughing because they tried to find the lightest scale they could. And that's what is making this suitcase so heavy is the scale, but it's got a nice Chromebook and everything. So I just wanted people to be aware of that. If anybody is doing telehealth, can't get to the doctor and they need to do their basics, that's now available. That's it for me. Yes.
I do have one. So one of our water employees, as I talked about in the workshop, Jordan Redden, did pass his class. He's not here. Corey's looking. He was the Class C water distribution certification with CDPHE, passed with an 86%, which is an incredible feat. We have really qualified water operators and that just continue to keep getting their certifications to CDPHE. So I'm really happy to see that happened.
We are too. Thank you for that update. Did that trigger anyone else for anything? If not, we'll move on to the public comment portion of the agenda, which is if anyone in the audience or on Zoom would like to speak on a topic that is not on the agenda tonight, you have 3 minutes and you're welcome to come up to the podium or put your hand up on Zoom and just come up and give us your name and write your name and address on the podium. Is there anybody here who would like to have their 3 minutes? Seeing none and nobody on Zoom? Okay, we will move on. So the next portion is a consent agenda. And I actually wanted to make a comment about the meeting minutes. Let me see if I can pull them up. So the end of the meeting minutes on October 8th are referring to, we had Stefan's annual review. And in those meeting minutes, it is saying that there are 7 elements to his performance appraisal. And I spoke the summary of each of those 7 elements, as well as his summary calculation, I should say, for his rating. And that, I would like to have that be in the meeting minutes, because what is in the meeting minutes is inadvertently saying that that information will be added by Stefan into tonight's administrator's report, when what we actually said was the 5 goals that he had proposed and we had agreed to, which no one was able to see, that would be included in his administrator's report for tonight, so people can access that publicly. So I'm okay with the meeting minutes being approved if we make that change. Any comments? Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
Could we approve them next week when we can see it? Or next meeting, or,
I don't see why not.
okay,
I mean, we could wait to see the revised version and have that brought back in the first meeting in November. Does that work? To do that? I don't know, do we need to make a motion to that effect? Or just pull them out of the consent agenda?
Probably, yeah, withdraw or pull them out of the consent. I'll move to approve the consent agenda with the exception of the meeting minutes from October 8th.
Second?
could I do one comment on the disbursements?
Sure. I'm looking at Sam, 'cause yes.
Oh, and this was just something we had talked about when we reviewed them on Friday. The last one with Stefan's travel for a meeting, we will get reimbursed that $442.07 from SIRSA once we show proof that we've paid him. So I think that's important to know.
Can I add to that?
You betcha.
So, yes, my travel expenses will be reimbursed for that SIRSA training. That was an ADA coordinator's training and an interpersonal communication style training as well. That's actually going to be reported on in my next report in November, but it also reimburses for the hotel. So it's going to be a larger reimbursement that we're going to see from SIRSA than the 442.07.
Did somebody second the?
No. Oh, okay, we don't have a second yet.
I'll second that.
All right. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
I'm going to pass this down the way and have everybody sign before everybody dashes for the evening. Thank you for that. And let's see, staff reports. Stefan, I think do you want to do your administrator's report before the scorecard?
I'm just going to go briefly over the scorecard. It's been updated. So if you haven't read it, please, recently, please do. And then this will be posted to the town's website as well for continuity. Okay. That's all I want to talk about on the Department of Scorecard, because my report is actually for September and October. And while it isn't in the packet, it is time to present the report. This is September and October's 2024 administrator's report. We give a pretty good update on Fifth and Grand. So what's happening at Fifth and Grand? What came out of the July 10th meeting has now been designed. So we had an on-site meeting with affected stakeholders. What came out of there was additional parking on the east side of the street, instead of having zero-scape, but actually having additional on-street parking. That has been designed, as well as some water line replacements. So we're operating under this dig once mentality, where if we're going to open up a trench or to open up a road where there's water mains, we're going to replace them while they're open. What we did find with our subsurface utility engineering study was that the water main that is in the middle of Grand Avenue right now has copper service lines that in some cases go 40 or 50 feet to each individual service. Well, the EPA came out with the lead and copper final rule that says they need to be replaced. You need to remove these from your system. So while it's open, we're going to replace them. And we've started that in our 2025 budget as well. We've budgeted for that coming out of water. So those design pieces have been completed. We're 95% complete. We have secured $1,010,592 through CDOT with a Revitalizing Main Streets grant. And we have Mary Backren going for a Safe Routes to School grant that could be anywhere from $100,000 to $1 million. that will go to offset the cost of the estimated probable cost of construction. The good news is somehow through the relationships that Mary has built, she received a letter of support from the CDOT executive director for our project, which is no small feat to go towards CDOT's application process. So that's a pretty good sign. We have budgeted like we're not going to receive any additional funding in fiscal year 25, as you saw in the workshop, with the hope that we do see some additional funding. There was one concern that came out of that meeting for right of way or who has what right of way. We were able to fix that or put any of those fears aside. That we do have the right of way throughout the entire project scope. There was one property that thought that they had owned into the middle of the road, but attachment A of this report shows roughly 26 different documents from the assessor's office that shows that was deeded to CDOT and then to the county, and then our MOU with the county has shown that we now have that right of way secured for this project. So we can move forward with that in 25 with actual construction. Okay, Water Capital Improvement Plan Phase 1. So we, trying to find out where we were to get to where we are. I wanted to put in a timeline of how things have happened, what staff has done that has predated me, what we have done since I have been here, and what we're going to do up to 2026. And so I put that into a timeline since the initiation of the water moratorium in 2020. 2019, obviously, we had that catastrophic water failure. 2020, the water moratorium went into effect, and it had, two conditions that had to be met by a water engineer, saying that we have capacity or where our capacity is at, what we can service. In 2020, they also started the groundwork for a water capital improvement plan, starting to look at what things needed to be done in order to improve our water system. By 2021, the town lost its only certified water operator, right? So we only had one person doing all of this work, maintaining our systems, doing the actual water and wastewater work. We lost that person. And then we had hired a temporary group to come in to do operations. And the anecdotal story I heard from our engineer was that person said, I don't want to do this forever. There's way too much work. So then we started hiring, right? The town started hiring and training staff to become water operators. So in 2020, we had significant staffing changes. One was, within terminations and new staff hiring. The public works director was hired in February of 2022. That's Corey. A long-term employee transferred to the water department. That's Jordan, who just got a certification and began obtaining certifications. Still obtaining certifications. Then we hired a second water employee. The town administrator resigned, and an interim administrator was hired. And then shortly after 2022, 23, finance director was terminated. All of these things are putting the water capital improvement plan behind, right? You have to have good financial statements. You have to have audits on time. And so that's kind of where we were, but we're still working on this water capital improvement plan. Later that year, RESPEC was also given a general engineering contract in November. And then this was the first part that really helped us to collect data. Staff, Corey Jordan at that time was another employee that's no longer here, started installing eye hydrant monitoring stations on our fire hydrants. In 2019, it was found that our significant water loss happened right outside of a fire hydrant. And so putting these eye hydrant metering on fire hydrants helps staff to get to where they are today with a 24-hour response time. So it's no longer weeks and weeks of water loss. It's a water event has been noticed, and within 24 hours, we've repaired that water. I mean, that's an incredible turnaround I'm not saying that it's been identified, within 24 hours. I'm saying it's been repaired within 24 hours. So we're doing really well with finding leaks and fixing them. This started in 2022. 2023, obviously there was more big changes to staffing. I was hired in 2023. We completed a water capital improvement, or the project needs assessment needed for our water capital improvement plan. So we could go after state revolving fund, loans. Those are low interest loans that have anywhere from $1 to $3 million of principal loan forgiveness for communities our size and disadvantaged communities. We completed a 20-year cash flow analysis in order to get that, to get that P&A approved through CDPHE. That was a long process in itself. For CDPHE to review our project needs assessment and approve it. We got approved this earlier this year, but we put it in 2023. We also received a $40,000 reimbursable grant for that P&A. So in 23, we received that grant so that when we put in that project needs assessment, we can recover some of that cost. Again, you had hired me, and while we were doing all of this stuff, this planning for our water capital improvement plan phase 1, we also had 3 emergency sewer repairs and 1 planned sewer repair at Dorst Avenue. And that's a lot of work to be done in 1 year. Let's see. Throughout 2023, we started a meter auditing project. You heard in the workshop that on paper, we were able to reduce our water consumption by over 15 million gallons of water because we started accurately reporting what was flowing through our meters. It wasn't super inflated. And I'm not saying that we were overcharging by 15 million gallons. We were reporting that we were using 15 million gallons for let's see. We began logging our water loss and making those repair efforts. And like I said, we're repairing from noticing a water leak to repairing it in 24 hours. We also began mapping the lead and copper service lines throughout town so that we could comply with our final rule from the EPA. It's due on Friday. We turned it in already. They already have it. It's done. That survey is done. We know how many lead and copper lines that we have. We have a good estimate, and we can start chipping away at them.
Can you see how many you have?
I don't have the spreadsheet in front of me, but I think we had 13 verified lead lines. I don't remember how many copper. I can say that I looked mine up on the spreadsheet and I don't have it. Mine's plastic. Mine's what it needs to be. But we do have 13 lead service lines in town that need to be replaced.
Will the public have access to do the same thing? To see if,
Check their own residents.
The onus is on us to replace those service lines.
Yep, I get that part, but I mean for us to know where the lead lines are and where the copper lines are.
I have to see what the state says after we turn it in. So we may be required, it may be a requirement that we let them know. I don't know if the state's going to let them know, but we're still waiting on what the next steps are after we've turned that survey in. But it is probably a good idea to let them know they have a lead service line, we should replace it. A lot of the data collection wasn't just our guys looking into a meter pit. It was residents self-reporting as well. Let's see. In 2023, we completed notable work on our comprehensive master plan. Hadn't been updated since 1996. We continued even more of that work in 2024 and hope to have it finished by the end of first quarter 25. That's also an important piece of our water capital improvement plan because there's an element specific to water and water conservation that is in the draft of the plan that has been through the Planning Commission. And you guys should probably see a draft as well. Let's see. In 2023, there was also 2 clarifying ordinances on the water moratorium. The first one was repealed and replaced by the second one. Second one did clarifying language on that the moratorium doesn't prohibit the connection of lawfully served units, and it gives that was the only change that replaced the original clarifying ordinance for the moratorium. This is a graphic of like the water grants that we had received for all of our different phases. That was our hydrogeological study, phase 1, the 2 million gallon plant, and what our total actual need is for all phases of that water capital improvement plan. Now, we've done a lot of progress in 24 with designing actual improvements to our water capital improvement plan. That's going up on our springs, doing our hydrogeological study. That's our capital improvements designed for our 2 million gallon tank relining and with our 8-inch steel line replacement. We are approaching 90% complete of the design. For that 8-inch steel distribution line, I should back up. We have not only acquired the additional property that we need for our tank, we did get final confirmation this week that everything is done and cleared. So we do own the piece of property that the temp tank is going to go on while we reline the tank. But we will get an RFP out very soon so that site work can be done yet this winter, ready for the actual tank relining to begin in the spring. It's happening. Then we did receive a $950,000 grant from CDP or EIAF Tier 2 funding. That's the mineral leasing funded grant for our severance tax funded grant for that tank relining. It's that project is going to happen spring of 2025. But the 8-inch steel distribution line we have designed almost 90% complete. This design includes upsizing the pipe from 8-inch steel, where we see all of our water loss, rust in the water, to a 12-inch plastic distribution line through 3 of the 4 different segments. So segments A, B, and C, the majority of our 8-inch steel distribution line is going to be upsized to a 12-inch plastic distribution line, increasing capacity. And so this is just rough math. I know the engineers probably looking at it like, how do you figure that's how many gallons they can hold? But 8-inch diameter pipe is estimated at 9,000 feet long to hold about 23,501 gallons of water. Feel free to correct my math. But then the upsizing that distribution line to 12 inches increases the volume of the pipe to nearly 53,000 gallons of water. So that's finished water outside of our tank that's stored within our lines. So we're increasing our storage capacity for free. But I do that in quotes. It's not really free, but it's a nice piece of this line replacement. Not only will we see additional storage capacity, but we're also going to see pressures. You're going to have more volume of water that we had to model our entire system based on this with our pressure, with our PRVs, those relief valves. Because the last thing we want to do is, start blowing fixtures off in bathrooms and kitchens, right? So all of that had to be modeled. We're so close to being done. We're working on right-of-way acquisition with the county. We're working on different agreements with, I think there's about 18 or 20 private places where this pipe, there's no way that we can do it any other way than to cross private property. And so we're working on some of those agreements. But the majority of it is coming out of private property into county right-of-ways that we're working on agreements with. We will be meeting with individual water companies to talk about, what's going on and what this means for those consecutive systems. It's going to be better for everyone, but what that actually means. We anticipate that 8-inch steel replacement or that steel line replacement will begin in 2025, but it's not going to be done until 2026. It's almost 2 miles of pipe replacement that's an upsizing, crossing under county highways, going through private properties. It's going to take some time. So we're looking at the end of 2026 before that's done. Due to the volume of the projects that we have underway and the construction that we're looking at in 25 and 26, I'm I'm about to have the conversation with our engineers to put the planning of phase 2 on hold until 26 and continue it through 27. I think we're going to have a more informed phase 2 based on the improvements that we're doing with our phase 1. We're going to be buttoning up these steel lines that are leaking like a sieve, that we know are leaking, that we continuously have to repair. And that's going to significantly impact and help to inform what our next phase has to be. I can tell you, as I told you in the workshop, I'm up to here with my capacity with engineers and meetings. And so we need this time to be able to get these projects done and then help to inform us what our next phases ought to be. Okay, let's see. This is a pretty handy map. This is our raw water monitoring. So this is the overall raw water system. So this is all of the water that we're collecting on the mountain, right? So this is everything that goes into our upper plant, our lower plant, and it's where we get all of our water from. This is part of the hydrogeological study, and it's going to help to inform how much water we actually have on the mountain. I'm going to give you a little bit of a spoiler alert. We have more than what we thought, and that came out of the hydrogeological study. Even with just the surface looks, there are deep freshwater pools up on the mountain that are feeding our springs. So there's a lot of surface water as well. That's why fire mitigation or fire hazard mitigation is really important, but it's also to the point where we don't want to cut back too much brush, because that brush is also acting as a way of evaporation control. Okay, budget process update. Like I said, in the workshop, I met my statutory deadline October 15th. I got you a draft of that budget. We went over it in this workshop. I think we need to have, as Trustee Swartz had said, another workshop to really fine tune details. But we do have some upcoming deadlines. We have a deadline for submitting to the Department of Revenue for an increased levy. We're not proposing an increased levy. So that kind of deadline is kind of moot. 11/12 is my draft, my proposed date of a final budget for the Board of Trustees to go over. Obviously, these dates can change, but the one that can't change is that by December 15th, we have to have a final adopted budget in order to certify our mill levy to the county commissioners and the assessor's office. So that's our real hard deadline that I can't change. But in between there, we can have special meetings, we can have workshops to really fine tune budget stuff. I did give a little update on what we've done so far. We held our first strategic planning workshop on August 27th, identified some external and internal conditions on our existing departments. We also developed, I gave out worksheets for mission statements and value statements. I had one trustee submit them, and I used that to help. It was Trustee Hunter. She really gave us those what we did to help make those that mission statement, value statements, and then also our SWAT analysis. So I was really glad to have you meet with our individual department heads and even staff to talk about some of the the challenges that they have in their departments, because I think that was good so that you could see where they are on daily operations side of things. There are some things that we discussed in the workshop about reduced revenue. We anticipate, because of certain legislation passing through the state, $50,000 less in property taxes and about $40,000 less in highway user tax fund. Those are things that are out of our control, that if we start noticing a trend, we're going to have to do something to address it, and that downward trend over multiple years. Okay, mission statement. So this is by no means is this when I'm saying, hey, this is done, it's finished. I really want feedback on this mission statement. And so this is something that was, it was in my the report that I'd sent to you, was it yesterday? Whenever I finished, it was like 9 o'clock at night, so I apologize. But this is that mission statement. Paonia is a vibrant community that values our rural, small town history and heritage, centered on education, recreation, social and economic diversity, and a government that ensures a quality of life for all residents by striving to provide exemplary service in a safe, healthy, and transparent manner while protecting our precious natural resources. I tried to capture what we've heard in our comprehensive planning process, what I've gotten from, the feedback that I got from Trustee Hunter, and then also what I've heard through numerous public engagement sessions that we've had. Open to any suggestions for change. Core values. This again was based on what we've heard from the comprehensive plan. I also, under natural resources and economic development, borrowed some language from Western Slope Conservation Center and put some of that in. But resiliency. So these are our value statements. Resiliency. We embrace our creative culture and recognize that new industries have flourished after experiencing historic losses to the mineral industry. We commit to ensuring that Paonia remains a livable town, recovers quickly from difficulties, and we strive to support our town by proactively adapting to the rapidly evolving impacts of climate change. Family and community. We value our families, individuals, neighbors, and our extended community as a whole, and ensure Paonia remains a livable town, providing an affordable, high quality of life for all residents through exceptional management of resources. Conservation and recreation. We value our diverse recreational opportunities and recognize that thoughtful stewardship of our natural resources contribute to our vibrant community and quality of life, and that we recognize that our water, agricultural, and recreation management practices directly impact our environment and the ability for our residents and the environment to flourish. Natural resources and economic development. What you have in your pack, what I sent to you earlier, had some typos. I fixed them for this meeting. So we value investment in our businesses and promote sustainable solutions to economic development while honoring our agricultural heritage and ensuring that we address the impacts of growth to our natural environment in a sustainable and regenerative manner. Again, open to any sort of feedback for these value statements, but I really tried to use what we've heard through that comprehensive planning public engagement sessions. And then, like I said, I borrowed from WSCC for some language. Okay. SWOT analysis, the SWOT analysis for administration. And there's this recurring theme that I talked about in the workshops, but this is really for public edification. Employees and staff kept coming up as a strength, and that helped to inform our budget. So I really use these SWOT analyses to show, to help inform how the budget went, and to help determine the service delivery that levels that we wanted for each department. In my office, so the admin office need more office space. These are weaknesses. Volume of work is at times overwhelming. And I think that's an understatement because we were so far behind, but we are moving forward very, very rapidly. But some people would say not fast enough. But we are doing a lot. I mean, there's a lot of late nights that I'm putting in, our employees are putting in to make sure things happen. We have historic data collection, retention, and records management lacked established processes and procedures, resulting in difficult to recall information. We recently completed it's going to be on a board agenda here very soon. Kaja and Morgan recently completed an in-depth research of all of the existing standby water taps. Who has paid what? How many years they have been paying. Some cases it goes back to the 80s or 90s. And so there wasn't very good documentation. Or when I say very good documentation, I mean they weren't using Cassell, our ERP system. Now all of those digital records are going into Cassell. So we had to look at, in some cases, carbon copied receipts or handwritten notes on the front of a manila folder. So when you're looking at a file cabinet, you're only looking at the tabs, right, that say the names. So unless they actually pulled that out, you wouldn't see the notes that were written on that manila folder. And so there's been a lot of research that was done. We have a spreadsheet, and we have some policy questions that you guys will need to address once we bring that to you on an agenda. But that's what I'm talking about, some of the weaknesses that we've seen. And it's really pushed some other things back because these have become emergencies. We need to get them done. I'm done talking about my department. I'll go on to the ones everybody wants to hear about. I really like this graphic. It's so 1992. This is the SWAT analysis for the police department. We are fully staffed. We have incredible officers that aren't like what you kind of see in social media, right? Our officers live in the area, they're active in our community, and they're they're great. So we've got really good staff. But there was something between strengths and opportunities on the actual paper that we had that I had to find a way to put it on as, it's both a strength and opportunity. And that's our interagency cooperation. Matt has worked incredibly hard at making us saying, hey, don't forget us, right? With the county, with our other neighboring communities. He's done a really good job. Okay, water SWOT analysis. Again, employees continue to come up as our strength. And I guess our engineering firms are on there too. 3 excellent engineering firms. They are really good. They really know our system. They've really dived into our system. Right Water was our water engineers, 80s, 90s. They were familiar with our system. They helped with our the original water protection plan, the drinking water protection plan. Our weaknesses are that we're understaffed, that it's hard to staff those positions with the wages that we had in 24. In 25, we've bumped the vacant positions up to be competitive. And so we're really hoping to fill those gaps. We do have skilled contractors in our area. We are incredibly blessed to have supplemental funding from grants. Sometimes that disadvantaged community status really helps us. So to get supplemental funding to help balance our needs. And then one of the big ones I really want to hit on is an opportunities that we can improve our relationship and collaborate with our consecutive water systems. Those are the water companies, the 23 systems that we serve, with drinking water. There is a plan to get them around in a roundtable discussion about, the pressures that we're seeing from CDPHE and what that means for not only the town, but also for these consecutive systems. Some of the requirements that are coming out of CDPHE for them. They may be aware of it, but most likely their ORCs, those operators in responsible charge, are the ones that are aware of it. And I don't know if that communication is happening from ORC to the consecutive water system board, their elected board. Let's see, probably not. And so I really want to get them, and I think we're going to get them, we are going to get, not I think, we are getting them around a round table for that discussion. The challenge that we had was that our system, our database for contact information was very, very outdated, and it only just recently got completed. So now I can contact people that aren't from, beyond the grave. Our wastewater now, and I should point out, all of these pictures are from town. This is actually our water tank behind there. That's our water treatment plant out at Lamburn. And yes, it's dead grass, but we're not watering from the water tank. That means there's a leak in the tank. So that's why you see it. It's in the middle of a rancher's field. This is our wastewater SWAT. That is our wastewater plant in the background. That lagoon system out in technically Hotchkiss. So, but again, employees, is our strength. We're understaffed. That's our weakness. It was almost identical to what was in water, with an opportunity here that is a little bit different. That we have ditch company offsets, and that we have a floodplain near our plant. Dilution isn't always the solution in wastewater treatment. However, we have the ability to dilute because it's right next to the river and the floodplain. So it's a good thing. And I'm not saying that's raw sewage. I'm saying that's treated effluent. It is probably cleaner than our raw water coming into our drinking water treatment plant. Because not only is it chlorinated, but then it is dechlorinated before it is discharged out into the river. Okay. Some of the threats that we're seeing is additional rules and regulations from CDPHE and the EPA, which will affect our NPDES permit. We are on a temporary permit until the EPA figures out what their final rules are going to be and what their limitations are going to be. So that's why we've started that P&A process, project needs assessment process for wastewater to help us get that state revolving fund level funding. This is the Streets, Parks, and Rec SWAT. That is a skateboarder at our skate park, and my daughter took that picture. It's really awesome. That's why I said I got to include this somewhere. Again, we have all of these. We have this great parks network. It's not just active parks, but we have a lot of green space that we're utilizing, which is itself a parkland. We do have, again, caring and professional employees. One thing that is new to this is that we have free public Wi-Fi internet. We do have a robust volunteer network. That was that flower pot crew. That could also probably be an opportunity that we aren't engaging them enough, and really utilizing their help with some of our parks. But then one that straddled both is the tree board. So, it's a strength and an opportunity. It's underutilized, but the strength is we actually have that tree board. One of the things from that paper that you saw that we put up on the wall that turned into this graphic is that trees were identified as all of them: strength, a weakness, opportunity, and a threat, right? Some of the external threats was that emerald ash borer. Our opportunity is that we could help grow our under canopy in our parks. A weakness is we have aging trees that need to be addressed, aging or dead trees. Strengths is that we have a very good tree canopy in our park. So it encompassed everything. The final one that I didn't do a picture on is because I didn't really want to get a picture of our trash truck. It's not pretty. It's pretty dirty. Is our trash SWOT analysis. And so again, dedicated employees. But the thing that came out of this one as a weakness was employee safety. And we kind of discussed that in our workshop. We do have some policy changes that need to be made. One of them is around dumpsters and who is responsible for getting rid of like the bald-faced hornets that swarm our employees every time they empty that dumpster, to the point where we have to budget for wasp and hornet spray. It really should be the customer's responsibility to take care of those wasps or to let us know, not that it's a surprise when our guys go to dump it and they get swarmed. So I personally watched this happen. And so I said, how long has this been going on? And I think it was Rodney, one of our drivers said, oh, all the time. And that's why we carry cans everywhere. And then Matt, throws out a can and it's a problem. One of the other issues is that there's customers that get confrontational with their employees because we tag their garbage. They're not complying with our code. We're not picking it up because it could be construction debris. It could be hot ash out of their fireplace, unbagged hot ash. We're not picking those things up. And so it creates confrontation with employees and that customer. There are times where some customers are abusing the cheaper trash can and throwing out more garbage than what they're paying for. And so there are things that we talked about in the workshop that we can do to mitigate those circumstances, and budgeting for two different types of garbage can. A 95-gallon garbage can for those that are standard, a roller toter that we give to everyone. It says this is 95 gallons. This is equivalent to 3 garbage cans that you would have bought yourself. Fill it up. And as a matter of fact, you wouldn't even have to bag this garbage because we have a lift that we can toss it out of. And then also budgeting for that smaller garbage can, that 35-gallon toter, and we'll start to recognize people that are abusing the system. if they've got multiple garbage bags that are outside of the can that aren't fitting within that smaller can, we know that they need to be charged for something extra. Or if it happens multiple times, they'll need to be charged appropriately and given a larger can. And that kind of backs off that customer employee confrontation. So, but sorry. One of the threats is landfill approaching maximum capacity and tipping fee increases. We did learn at our municipal quarterly on Thursday last week that tipping fees are going up $5. We budgeted for that that I showed you in that workshop. This is all the supporting documentation for that. This is considered attachment A from my report. This is showing that we actually own the property at 5th Grand, that realignment. And then, like I said, there was a lot of information they got from the assessor's office, the county, that proved it. And then these were our most recent meeting minutes with RESPEC to show that our water line replacement is going from 8-inch to 12-inch, and then a timeline. That is it for my report.
Questions for the administrator?
I apologize that it was a little longer, but this is for September and October. You get another one at the next meeting too.
I would like to make a motion that we have another budgetary work session to discuss the rest of the documents in the next week, or we could do it before the next board meeting, same time, 5 o'clock.
That would be on the 12th. And what was your timeline? Does that give us time?
Yeah, we just have to have a budget adopted by December 15th. So we can certify the bill levy, which we are not proposing to increase it.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? And that was to have it start at 5 o'clock on November 12th. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Well, with that, we'll move on to actions and presentations because there are no other staff reports, as I see. So the first item of business is action item number 1, which is discussion of the fence removal and replacement between Town Hall parking lot and the neighbors to the south. And we are referring to the parking lot right outside that has been recently repaved and restriped. And let's see, if I'm on page 29 of the packet. So that had a staff report and I'm gonna go for it.
I'll take it, yeah. And I want to add, so with our restriping and repaving of this parking lot, we gained 3 additional spaces, 1 regular space and 2 ADA spaces with a loading lane in between. So we're ADA compliant in our public parking lot. Yay. As the ADA coordinator, that makes me happy. Okay, and I am actually really proud of Corey. This is a really thorough staff report that he put together. And he is ill. That's why I'm going to take this one for. So we had to do some research. First, we had to figure out a survey to see, the boundaries of our parking lot, who owned the fence, where it was. We found that the fence is on town property. And so there's the recommendation that we're going with, I guess, fence between 209 Main and the Town Hall parking lot is in need of replacement. It's that chain link fence. I hit it the other day pulling in as well. So that happens often, and not me hitting it, but you can look down the fence line and see that people hit it. But so the trees growing along the fence combined with the likely years of parking lot abuse from cars bumping into it, and I was one of them, has put it in fairly poor condition. Public Works has already completed as much of the tree removal as they're comfortable doing to allow for repaving the parking lot. So they did fell some trees, trim some things up, but there's pretty large trees within that fence line. They have new bump stops that they'll be installing to come in so people don't hit the new fence that we're proposing. As well as ingress and egress into the alley from the parking spots. And so you saw those at the ADA spots, and then those spots that are facing the alley, there are actual stops in the parking lanes, like you would find it if you're going to the Grand Junction. Corey is asking to contract for tree removal in an amount not to exceed $1,500. And I should back up. Because this survey showed that the fence is wholly town property. We're not asking the property owners here tonight, we're not asking them to cover any of the cost of installing a fence. We just wanted to work with them to make sure that they're okay with the design of the fence and what it looks like. And then to remove the trees as well. Those have to come out in order to install the fence. So Corey's asking for $1,500 in an amount not to exceed. And then he would like the Public Works Department to replace the fence with something more suitable for that area. I'm going to show you a picture here in a little bit. But he is proposing that his guys do the work to save on the cost of that fence. And then all we're into it is $5,500 in materials. So he's saying he wants tree removal and fencing materials. He's proposing $1045.20 for the tree removal and $1045.70 for the fencing materials. He got that from me, so it is something that is within our budget. He does give a recommended motion, but I do want to show you what he's proposing. So he's proposing this kind of a horizontal slatted fence between the public parking lot and the neighboring property. It will stair step down at the alley, the end of the alley. So it's not going to be that full 6 or 8 feet. It can go up to 8 feet because it's 2 different zoning types. You've got a residential zone and a public institution zone with that parking lot. But to go down to 4 foot closer to the alley and then closer to the exit. That's for visibility and so that it complies with our zoning code. I think it would be appropriate to hear from the neighboring property owners, but that is it for his report.
If you're all right, maybe we can have discussion after we hear from the neighbors. If one of you or all of you want to come up and just give us your name and your address.
Yeah, so I'm Nikki Richardson, this is Jim Richardson, and this is our good friend Mark Sims, who is our tenant there. And I wanted to stand up because we've been waiting to make this request since January. So we don't even have to be here anymore because you're already doing it. But we do feel like this is a collaboration. In December, we took down some trees, spend about what you're going to spend. And it's mutually beneficial, and it's not gonna be over because we share this line. So that's really what I have to say. Do you have anything else to say? Yeah. We might come ask for other stuff later, but thank you for doing this one.
Yeah.
Trustee Hunter.
How do you guys feel about the design? Any objections?
Corey's been super forward with
Awesome.
us, stopping by, showed us pictures, and we liked it. We suggested the stepping down, so it's that tall at the house,
Yeah.
and then steps down.
Yeah.
So it's a little more normal.
And
Yeah.
we'll probably do the same thing around the other sides as we get ready to do fencing.
Yeah.
'Cause
No, it's great.
It's
I mean,
attractive.
Corey has been awesome.
Glad to hear it.
And we did, when we cut the trees down, we came and talked to Stefan about that.
Trustee Heck?
Oh, I was just gonna ask, what height is the fence?
I think Corey, I think he contemplated just a 6 foot.
6 foot?
Yeah, and then stair stepping down to 4 foot. Is that, you recall that? Yeah. It could go up to 8 foot because it's 2 different zoning, but I think it's appropriate.
It
6
seems
foot.
excessive.
Just
That
keep
feels
the
like,
headlights out.
I was standing inside the bedrooms and you can see over and it feels nice, but you can't see the cars, like what I guess about 6 feet.
Okay.
Did you have any, is that what you wanted to?
Are you okay with the trees coming out?
I think the trees have to come out, and I don't think that the stumps can come out. Looking at it, it will destroy the parking lot, and our foundation's 4 feet away. Some of those are big stumps.
But we will have to work together to make sure no trees
Yeah.
find their way
Poison
there
well.
because they love that space.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, awesome.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Thanks, trustees? Yes, trustee Schwartz.
Yeah, I have to say I'm a little bit skeptical. Tell me what the reason is. Because yes, there's a property next door, but there's been a chain link fence. Like, are we just doing it to protect the neighbors from seeing our parking lot? Because to me, that doesn't seem like a good use of taxpayer money.
So it's a standard to do in public parking lots. It's a standard to do some sort of privacy fence in between two different zoning types. Typically, you see a public parking lot in a downtown commercial area, and it's more appropriate to have, no fencing. But this is abutting a residential area. And then what we set here becomes the precedent for our other parking lot that we have across Main Street. But we're going to have to do something similar. By putting in a privacy fence along that residential area, it's going to help delineate what is public and what is private. And I think that's going to be important because now we have a really good public parking lot that is, it is utilized significantly. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be utilized even more as we have different events downtown. And we want to keep that designation, what is public and what is private, so that people are very clear where the boundaries are.
Any other comments, discussion? Trustee Hunter.
That was my question coming in is, typically if a fence is on a boundary line between two properties, you split the cost kind of a thing. And so that was my question to ask coming in, but I feel like that was answered. It was our fence on our property. We were replacing it, I guess.
Can I add to that? So that was the majority of the delay because we were waiting on our surveyor to complete a survey. They were pretty backed up.
And anyone in the audience like to make a comment on this agenda item or on Zoom? Seeing none, we'll continue. Is anyone ready to make a motion?
I will move to approve the fencing plan for the newly paved parking lot in an amount not to exceed $7,000.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay. Nay.
Thank you. All right, moving on to action item 2, which is thank you.
Thank you.
This is, I have brought this forward simply because I would like everybody to consider Administrator Wynn being on the Gunnison River Roundtable as the municipality's representative. And I wanted to give a little background on what the Gunnison Basin Roundtable is. And at this point, I'm happy to take questions about it. I don't feel like I am not a authority on it. I'm just giving you the information that I was provided, but I wanted to make clear that this was created by the state as part of legislation passed in 2005. And there are these basin roundtables across the entirety of Colorado. I believe there's 9 total with, I think Denver is the 9th. And they meet 6 times a year. And I think at this point, because for the Gunnison Basin Roundtable, Commissioner Coons is the chair. So I think the meetings are being held at Delta, but they're also done by Zoom. And they do, as you can tell from the map, if you all had a chance to look at the map of the Gunnison Basin, their influence is big on how water is managed within our larger Gunnison Basin. And they also have a lot of influence on funding for grant proposals. So I felt like it would be to our benefit to have Stefan be part of that roundtable to bring that information back, not just to us, but the other municipalities in Delta, just to see decisions being made by the, the Colorado Water Conservation District, which is how the basins operate or under the auspices of that state agency. But it seemed in our interest to have someone intimately involved with those discussions and seeing what sort of changes are coming, what money is coming. Yes.
And to put that in, put us into perspective with the rest of the state. Our water rights have been discussed by multiple water engineers and water attorneys as being the most difficult in the state, the challenging. And also, we are unique in that we also provide water to 23 consecutive systems. And so that's something that is, I think, lacking from that Gunnison-based roundtable that they currently don't have.
Discussion amongst trustees. Oh, sorry. Trustee Short. And John didn't move.
Would serving on this preclude us from great?
So if it were to come down to like voting for a grant,
Yeah.
I may have to do what you guys do, recuse yourself, but I wouldn't have a personal financial interest, so maybe I would. It would be up to whatever the roundtable's attorney says. But I could advocate for sure.
Any other trustee questions? Questions from the public or on Zoom? Okay, seeing none. Yes, trustee Hunter.
I move to approve letter of support for town administrator Wynn to be considered for the Delta municipality seat on the Gunnison-based roundtable.
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that sounded unanimous.
There's one other person I know that's putting in, he's from the city of Delta, so we'll see where that goes.
Yeah. I should have added that he may or may not be chosen, just simply because this is multiple people applying to the position. So at this point, just to follow up, I can't remember, it's due November 7th. So I don't know if you have an application you fill out, I didn't get that.
They just want a letter of interest.
Yep, so.
That's been supported by.
Okay, so then we have this one to sign, great. Let's see, so speaking of the airport, agenda item number 3 is I went with Stefan and Neil Schwederman last Wednesday up to the airport to talk about future and the apron that's gonna have to be repaired at some point. And I don't know, I found it completely fascinating. It was really good to see the airport because we do have an airport. So we thought it would be good to try to get a trustee meeting tour and then make that, open to the public, obviously as a public meeting. So Neil threw out dates. He and Stefan constitute the airport advisory committee. That's right.
There's like.
Who else is on it? Who else? I don't even know.
The only names I know are me and Neil. But I serve with them, we meet twice a year.
But is that for just Paonia or Delta and Paonia? Just Paonia?
It's Paonia, so it's that North Fork Valley Airport Advisory Committee. And I think there's 5 of us. One of them, so it's myself, Neil, our FBO, that fixed base operator, Mike. Clausen, is that his name?
Mike Clausen?
Yeah. And then there are 2 others that are on it.
Larry passed away.
Right, and he's already been replaced. And then Commissioner Coops is the county's counterpart.
Oh, I stand corrected. I didn't realize you had a full suite.
We haven't posted the minutes on the website, but we have minutes and agenda that shows everyone's name.
Okay. Yes.
There's a Randy Boykin as well.
Yes.
Okay. And the proposal is just to meet Neil up there. Right?
And these are the dates that he can't do.
Mhm.
So he said any other date is great.
So I guess canvas folks, first of all, is everybody okay with getting an airport tour?
I mean, when there's wildfire, we have planes that land there, fuel up or get water and then go fight fires. We also have a very wealthy rancher that owns a few ranches that flies in to go check on his ranches. So we don't charge them either.
There's 2 courtesy cars up there in the hangar that people can call ahead, which is what I'm assuming is what Clay did, because he was actually here in person to interview when we did attorney interviews, because he flew in. to the airport in his
I have a
private plane.
Client that I engineer airport hangars for, and they've flown in and taken the courtesy car to the
Yeah.
office.
So have you been up?
Yeah, I've landed there.
You what?
I've landed there.
You have? Wow. Maybe we should go with you.
I'm in my plane. This compliments, this is rental the community.
Oh, yeah. She did that too. Yeah. All right, off topic. So dates? Oh, wait a minute. Would it be best to do a doodle poll?
I'm just gonna offer that, if
Yeah.
you guys are okay with that, I think it's the easiest way to do it, because then you guys can prioritize, which dates work best for you.
Rather than on the fly.
Could we keep it limited to like, can we get it done in an hour? Like, how much time do we need to do a thorough airport tour?
We'll be up there.
Between travel time is probably about 2 hours.
Okay.
Just to meet here and get up there.
It's really not that much.
And now that I think about it, when we do go, we'll probably need to bring a couple of chairs for those of you that are recovering. Because I started to hurt standing up there, so.
Interesting.
I was just gonna make a motion.
Mhm.
And to read, yeah,
Mhm.
that, we ask staff to do a doodle poll for a, I'm looking for the words,
Airport tour?
airport tour, thank you.
I second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
By the way, we have a municipal airport.
All right, action item number 4 is me again. All right, so you all are seeing this for the second time. So the planning commission at our last meeting, I don't remember what day it was, recently, last week, we had, we were instructed by the trustees to look into parking, downtown parking. So we had a discussion at the planning commission meeting using the documentation that was provided by not only the public safety committee, but by trustee Schwartz and Commissioner Howe, which I re-included in this agenda packet, just so we have it in one place. And honestly, we went round and round and just did not feel like we had the requisite knowledge to change or make any proposed changes to the code, or to go talk to people with private parking lots. So my motion, the 2 motions you can see here in the report, we'd like to come back to the trustees and ask for staff help. So, comments, questions?
Makes sense to me.
Comment, I hate the idea of dumping more on staff, but it seemed that the crux was contacting other property owners. Can we use your facility for parking? To me, that was more suited to staff.
Mostly the bank, I presume, because that's about the only space around that has parking space available.
Dawn's.
And Stefan?
Couple of questions. What is the expectation? What are we trying to get out of what you're asking me to do? Are you asking for ordinance or policy recommendations? Are you asking for us to contact neighboring properties?
My thought was that potential parking options for business parking, no overnight, which was the piece that was included by trustee Swartz and Commissioner Howe. Looking into that as far as viability of those as options. I don't know that, so this is my take as one commissioner, not speaking for the whole commission, but it's been discussed, do we actually have a parking problem? And we have the Public Safety Committee report that shows not a dire problem, but we've always said we need to look into the future and plan ahead kind of a thing. And so in my mind, we're not looking for an ordinance yet. We're just looking for feasibility of these other parking areas as a potential solution in the future. That's my take.
I have more questions.
Well, I just was going to add that I think we also were pretty stymied by what is in chapter 16, where there are so many specific parking space requirements for certain types of businesses. And from my perspective, is that even necessary? Do we need those sorts of restrictive parking requirements or not?
So, yeah, so for trustee Hunters, that's something we can easily do. For your question, I would defer to Leslie, since she's working on our land code as well, and see if she could give us some recommendations. And then my final piece is, when are you expecting this by?
I don't feel like there's a rush on this
Okay.
by any means. The one piece would be discussing with Leslie while she's working on the code of.
Yeah. So if I were to put this on a departmental scorecard, I would be okay to put it as December of 25.
I would have no objection to that.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. That's all I have for my questions. So,
And more discussion based on Administrator Wynn's thoughts.
What,
Mr. Schwartz.
what I wouldn't want is like that we don't have any discussion on this until December of 2025, because like I've been texted so many times by people, by business owners who have issues in town. They're like, that does not reflect my experience. So I don't want us to say like, oh, we're going to push this off a year. And I want us to be completely realistic with staff time. So if it would be like, okay, if Leslie, I think her deadline is what, February of this year or next year to have the code done?
technically that grant contract is up in 26.
But what was the proposal that she had sent us?
I think it is, no, it's not February of next year. That's for comprehensive plan.
Springish, wasn't it?
I thought it was, I thought it was May.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, if we could have like even the ordinance updates by the end of her project, which hopefully it won't be 2026 because we have a lot of work to do with code rewrite. And then even just an update, maybe summer from staff, like here's what we're finding. Like, I don't want it to just die, and it could just die if it's December of 2025.
Understandable, but we have a lot of construction projects starting in the spring of 25.
And I'm not saying to have it done by, I'm just asking for just a very modest update.
Okay. And let me, Rick has his hand up, or Trustee Stelter, and Clerk Better has her hand up. Let me go with Trustee Stelter.
When we heard the study, there was found that there was no considerable parking problem. And this is a perceived problem by a few people, and maybe we should push this back until well after we have the ordinances redrawn, and we go ahead and schedule this for after we get the ordinances done. Our muni code it really has to be done before we do this. Otherwise, we're just wasting time.
So, Leslie's contract, March 31st, that's when she said she had it done. Sam just verified. The one issue that we were running into is, while she could start some land use code revisions, she can't finish them until our comp plan is done. And so that might push things for her. Already, we know there's no way that if we take all the way to February 28th to adopt something for the planning commission, for the comprehensive plan, there's no way she's going to have something November 31st. She's going to need additional time, even if she starts front loading things. So maybe an update in June of 25. We could do something like that. As far as the code part is, with finding other opportunities for parking. The person that's going to end up doing that is me. So I don't know. Maybe by the end of March I could have something. Trying to keep out of May because I take 2 weeks off. That's my annual Mecca to Indianapolis.
And what are you anticipating you would have? Are you going to look at code? or lots?
I don't know. I have to take some time to frame what I'm, what I'm actually gonna accomplish. While I'm also addressing end of year closeout, the final budget throughout the end of this year. And then we're starting our audit early in 25, so we're ready by June. So there are some things that I just know I've got pretty set things that have got to happen.
I'd like to make one comment that's slightly off topic, but because we're bringing up timelines with the code rewrite and the update to the comp plan, just as one of the members of the planning commission, I am concerned that the planning commission is not going to meet the deadline that the board of trustees has set out for the comp plan. And I think that the board should be aware of that.
Oh, we haven't taken
We haven't
any.
taken any.
We haven't taken any public input. Would you like to come up and speak? I'm sorry. Oh.
I would be happy to volunteer to help with this project, Stephanie. And if that means going out and talking to the various owners of parking lots and the like, I would have the volunteer to do that if the board would be so happy to let me do that.
Thank you so much.
Trustee Hunter.
Does staff have any objection or any concerns?
Absolutely not. We're already working with Mary as our grant. It's more than just a manager, it's like guru. I don't know. So,
I'm pretty familiar with working with SWAT Plant.
We don't usually have to be next time. Yes, I would like people to know this.
Yes. Chief Clover.
I'll chime in. PD might be able to help a little bit. We've actually spoken with them of this business owners already. So we kind of have a running list of places where people park during festivals and events. So we kind of laid some of that groundwork. We'd be happy to share that or maybe talk to them about expanding on those duties. But we do have a running list of people that are, yeah, that's fine. Can you just check on it at midnight, so on and so forth. It's been fairly informal, but we do have this network of people that we do rely on, especially during those busy weekends.
Can you provide that, a list of those persons? Is that?
Yeah, or we'd be happy to, since we've already spoken with them, we would be happy to ask them, maybe to be interested in a firmer commitment or possible future development of this, but we could help a little bit on this.
Great. Oh, Trustee Schwartz?
Oh, thank you, Mary. Thank you, Chief Laminger. And it might be if the board, I know we have specific policies of when we can utilize our attorney, but starting first with like, what would something like this look like? What would it look like from an insurance perspective, from a contractual perspective, the liability? Like, I would think even before we go and talk to anybody, we have to kind of understand what our risk is. Is it even feasible to do something like this? And
I could answer that. So I did this in Neptune Beach, Florida. And the city attorney had worked on some things. It was a change in the code that said if there are private parking lots available, that to meet your off-street parking, you can contract with them or lease with them to obtain those required spaces. And then that lease agreement is held on file with the city or the town. So there is I completely forgot about that. I put a whole parking program together. So it brought in $700,000 a year. I think this could be a really good thing that we could do. I'm so glad the police department is on board and Mary's on board because I'm at like capacity.
Trustee Check, you had to.
Oh, I was just going to reiterate what Trustee Hunter said. When we did our survey, there was only a couple businesses that were sort of complaining about parking. Most in the survey that Chief Laminger did there was ample parking for right now, except for these few people who were unhappy And as I recall, there was only 2 or 3 businesses right in the 200 block of Grand Avenue that were parking situation.
Can I offer an anecdotal? So with Louis' grand reopening, there wasn't a parking space available. I mean, even ADA spots were full. So as we have more businesses coming to town, it's going to become a problem, especially with Fiona's opening. They had their grand opening this past weekend. The Learning Council is, really ramping up some of their events. I do see that there is a need. I'm so glad that we have.
Is it time for a motion? Anybody have an idea of how to put that together?
Take a stab at it.
Great.
I move that we instruct staff to coordinate amongst themselves and with the help of Mary Backren, thank you very much, to look at the feasibility of additional parking spaces that can be utilized. How do we do the second part? Okay, I'll leave that one alone. There we go. That's the first one.
I second.
Any more discussion on that motion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes. You want to take a stab at part B?
No. About you, trustee Schwartz.
Yeah, I can totally take a stab at that. I motion that Sustainable Futures report to the Board of Trustees with recommendations on changes to parking code in conjunction with the comprehensive plan approval. Do we need those connected?
I would say in conjunction with the comprehensive code rewrite.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. With the comprehensive code rewrite.
I'll second.
Okay. Any more discussion? And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Next issue is sidewalk tripping hazards, which is on page 42 of your packet. So yeah, 42. And we'll turn this over to Administrator Wynn.
Yeah, so Corey he had been looking for ways to affordably address some of our major sidewalk issues, where there's serious tripping hazards. And he reached out to one company that gave a proposal that I have never seen before. I mean, not that I've never seen this before. I have never seen this kind of service offered before. So I would consider this a sole source kind of purchase. They came out and assessed every square of sidewalk in our town. So if you see in the corners numbers, they numbered and provided a report for us on condition of sidewalk for every square. They completed the sidewalk audit and found that, for sidewalk issues that don't require full replacement, they're not crumbled, they're not currently stone or bare ground or, completely heaving because of tree roots. They sent their surveyors out, did all of that report, and they found that they could fix 261 problem areas with uneven joints. And as Corey says, although there are many areas within town that aren't compliant with ADA regulations, this would show a good faith effort towards becoming compliant. By completing this work, Public Works will update their GIS mapping to track repairs and improve the overall sidewalk assessment that we currently have. This work is considered sole source, as staff aren't aware of any other companies in Colorado that offer this service. This could come out of the capital outlay funding for 104570, where we did budget for sidewalk improvements out of there. But you can see that each one of these numbers correlates to a square of sidewalk throughout town, an existing square. And so if it's needs complete replacement, they've made that note. If they could grind something off or use some sort of, I don't know how they do it, but even up those sidewalks, they say that they can do that. And so they've identified 261 areas that they can fix. And the cost for that is a little over $42,000. If you chose to go for, I guess, close to $43,000, which would be a little over 1 year's sidewalk revenue. But this would go a long way in fixing some of the tripping hazards, some of the areas that are on routes to school, and can go into conjunction with some of the crosswalks that we're painting, new crosswalks that we're painting with our paint spray. So again, I have never seen a service like this in almost 10 years with municipal governments. And I thought it was pretty neat that they could offer a service where they can get rid of tripping hazards, pretty affordable. And I mean, this is great data to have that we can put into our, I mean, they walk every sidewalk and chalked every corner. So, I think it's paint. I don't think it's just chalk.
I saw numbers in front of my house and the house next door. I went, oh. And then I got this. I went, oh, yeah.
I got phone calls from my wife saying, "Who are the weird people?" That's not a joke I have.
Discussion?
This would have been nice to have sooner, before the election, so we could get people to say, oh, look, something is being done with our sidewalk fee. Because I've heard people in town say, I've been paying the sidewalk fee and I don't see anything happening. Or I don't have a sidewalk. And they're wondering why they're paying. This way they would see some evidence that there is work being done.
Any comments? Trustee Schwartz?
So as you all know, I've been on crutches, and when I would walk my dogs, I would just hop in a wheelchair just because it's easier. And I experienced our sidewalks at such this different level. And there were so many places where it's like, I had to learn to get good at doing little wheelies just so I could get over these sidewalk humps. And it's like to be able to, and then I got really familiar with the blue numbering that they did. I'm like, oh my gosh, this could change so much and help address so many of the issues as we move things forward. So I 100% support this. And it seems very reasonable. And if Rick is still on the line, I know he's our sidewalk concrete guy. I'd be so curious what he thinks. If Trustee's still threatening.
Yes, I saw, and I've experienced all these problems in the town, and I think this is a very cheap option for us. They're basically getting a lot of the worst of the upset sidewalks out of the area, and I'm assuming they're going to cut them and get them smoothed out at least, and it will buy us some time. We don't have the budget to replace all the sidewalks, but I think we have the budget to do this, and then we can do some additional work. And that's all.
If I'm not butting in front of anybody, I just wondered, could you describe the information in the table? What I'm not sure of is inch feet, the rightmost column. Is that height by, so there's one that's number 21, says 6.56. And I was thinking about what Trustee Schwartz just said about how trees lift the sidewalk. If that means it's that high.
I don't know. Corey, I asked Corey for that crash course. I said, I'll just rely on you for the meeting when you got sick.
And Trustee Stelter, looks like you have an answer.
Yes, that is the displacement, the vertical displacement.
Okay.
So that's pretty serious.
Mm-hmm.
For 6 inch.
That's got to be a tree. Yeah.
At this point, would anyone from the audience like to come up and make a comment? Okay, seeing none and nobody else is on Zoom, raising their hand. Yes, and Trustee Heck.
If we
Sure.
hire, we ought to have minimum rates on the concrete, stuff like that. It could cheapen it up real easy.
And,
But that seems awful cheap. You know what I mean?
could you repeat what you said? I
Oh, the
missed
grades of the concrete,
the grades,
grade.
as in,
Test pounds per, Rick, help. Translate that for me.
did you
know what I
hear that?
mean? Like
The strength of
Trustee
concrete.
Stelter?
Yeah,
Yes,
that
when
one.
we have a vertical displacement of 6 inches and it's in one section of concrete, that's 6 inches in less than 5 foot, usually within 3 or 4. So that particular area will not be ADA compliant, but it will make the sidewalks passable by a wheelchair. The vertical displacement now, you just can't get over it. And people on crutches and a lot of the elderly people have trouble navigating our sidewalks. I don't know what the solution is because the trees have done the vertical displacement and we can't just go cut the roots of the trees and drop the sidewalk so we get a minimum slope. And the minimum slope is 1 inch and 12 inches. So a lot of this vertical displacement is going to be a problem from here on out, but it will alleviate some of the problem and get rid of a lot of it. Anything under about 3 inches, it'll take care of.
So trustee Heck, did that answer?
Like a standard feedlot or something, it would be a 2,800 pound test square foot. And the machine shed reported at 4,000 pounds per square.
Oh, you're talking
On
about
strength.
tests and stuff?
Oh, yeah, I mean.
So then steel reinforced concrete is a,
Well, in this case, no, it wasn't. It's just a high concentration of concrete, but we ought to have a quality minimum. I mean, on the standard of concrete poured, et cetera.
No, they're not.
they're not, okay, yeah, so let's clarify. They're not pouring concrete. What they're doing is either grinding or cutting.
Oh, they're just taking it out?
That's right. So not completely take to bare, but making cuts to make that displacement come down and be even. So that could be a cut in on one side so it falls, or it could be grinding off some of that concrete so that it's an even surface. That's what they're planning to do, not actually pouring concrete.
And trustee Valentine had a comment too.
I'm not.
That's why it sounds more reasonable now.
Right. Not pouring anything for 42,000. I think in the tree board, we looked at some solutions to the tripping and the tree root problem. I think I saw photos of this, and that's what they're doing is grinding those lips off. One way or another, so that they're not a tripping hazard.
Sure.
And I'm not even sure they'd be that much more navigable on a wheelchair. Just because of grade.
Uphill.
But it's a huge improvement in terms of people tripping and falling.
It'd be nice to see what they've done in the past. Yeah.
I'd like to make a suggestion that this be correlated with the tree inventory. To see like the one that's 656, because we have all the right-of-way trees are input by address. And we could see if it's a tree that's causing that problem. We could also see where they say recommended for replacement. We might want to check to see if it's trees that are the issue at those addresses as well, just to correlate that maybe we need to be thinking something about trees rather than in conjunction with this whole plan.
So are you asking me to give something to the tree board?
No, I think it wouldn't be, I don't think it'd be that difficult. I'd be glad to do the comparison.
I'm almost wondering if we could take the numbers and, because these are individual sidewalk pieces, and see if we can move that over to the tree inventory.
Well, and because the addresses are here, that's how the tree
Oh, I see.
inventory, it's organized by address. So to me, it wouldn't be hard to do a correlation between the ones that look terrible. Is there any kind of a tree issue associated with
I
it?
see.
if that makes sense. And trustee Stelter has his hand up. Go ahead, trustee Stelter.
Yes, one of the worst offending sidewalks in town is one in front of my house. And it has a 12.5-inch displacement, and it is the tree. And unless we do something like we do tree wells around them, we don't just have sidewalks that go straight. We may have to detour around the trees in order to save the tree or keep the tree. Otherwise, the only solution is to remove the trees entirely. That's all.
I would ask that they would give us this in a spreadsheet, because they put it, instead of a PDF. I wanted to draw attention to number 27. We had talked about elderly. That's in front of the senior center. That looks like a 5.25-inch displacement. So it's pretty bad.
Trustee Stelter, you looked at your address and yours was 12-inch?
Yes, there's one that is 12.5 inches.
So what number is it? Is that one? You have the number, you have it in front of you pulled up? Let's see, you're on the 3rd, right? Oh, I see it. You're number 171. Maybe?
Actually, nearly all of the sidewalk in front of my house needs to be replaced.
Yes, trustee Valentine.
I think we're asking way too much out of this. This is a very inexpensive, temporary, but really effective amelioration. And now we're drifting into the really expensive zone that brought down Denver. They tried to get people to replace sidewalks, and it was a very expensive proposition, and they had to just tank the whole project. So I think we need to look at this and say, I think it's a very, very good use of money. Do this and reduce risk, reduce hazard. But it's temporary, and that's all we would get out of this.
But I'd like to suggest that this is good information to go with our tree survey, is correlate this with the survey, and then we go, oh, okay, there's a tree that's in really poor condition, and the sidewalk is up 12.5 inches, because we have some money to look at trees. And maybe we can prioritize trees that are also on their last legs, because often the biggest ones are not very healthy. So that was my only point, is that this is, to me, extra additional information to go with the tree right-of-way tree survey.
Makes sense.
So any more? Yes, trustee Hunter.
I'd like to make a motion. if
Yeah.
I move to approve the safety improvements to mitigate tripping hazards and sidewalks with a not to exceed price of $42,830.63. And also ask Precision Concrete Cutting to provide this table in Excel format.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, last but not least,
Oh, there's more?
one more for you. Follow trust.
So this isn't gonna actually be an additional responsibility. It just it's appointing someone from college, one of our signers, to be able to vote in the board, the college trust board member elections. I don't have a suggestion other than I give a recommended motion that says, I move to appoint T.A. Nguyen, Mayor Smith, Trustee Schwartz, as the voting designee for the college trust. Just helps to vote on board members.
Is that all?
That's all they do.
So you have to listen to one meeting?
No, it's, if you've ever voted for, like, if you own stock, you get to vote in Disney World's, new chairman, stuff like, you get an email, select who you want. You set it.
You mean the stuff I put in the recycle bin?
Are you? I I don't care if I take it, I don't care if one of you take it, it's just voting, so.
If I might with myself, I'm happy to do it because I think you have enough to do.
Thank you.
So I'm happy to be that person and I promise I won't throw it in the recycle bin.
I move to appoint Mayor Smith as a voting designee for the Colorado Trust.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. That is the last agenda item and there are no reports, so it is 8:11 and I adjourn this meeting. Thanks, everybody.
Good night, guys.